Hi there. It is Taylor Bridges back with another video, another review of Ready to Love Season 7, Episode 14. This is the reunion special. We have made it to the end of the road. I think it's a two-parter. I hope it's not a three. We made it. It turns out the lifeline was a total waste of time. It did absolutely nothing for the show. I think the white hair on Jeffrey is a no. It's pretty. It's just not my favorite on her. Pardon me. Janique look aged. She looks aged, but she is very beautiful. I'm not a fan of the hair on Mercedes. Cynthia was sitting in her dress. Her hair was beautiful. Andre continues to get it wrong when it comes to style and personal swag. It's just horrible. It's tacky. And it's just unreliable. Like, you can't even rely on him to show up to a random happy hour with friends, without needing to see what you wearing. I need you to send me a picture. Like, we're not, all of us aren't looking for fashionistas, but Andre's style is just outright ridiculous and it's just so tacky. Tommy asks Jeffrey what made Andre stand out. And she pauses because she says after the finale, she never heard from Andre. And this is quite common on the show. These guys apply all this pressure, have all this energy, but once the show ends, they go ghost. Andre says there were things about Jeffrey's children that bothered him. Turns out Andre was suspicious about Jeffrey having two children's fathers who are not in the children's lives. Now, it's a valid concern. We've all been saying it. But why wouldn't Andre get this information during the process? What were y'all talking about in the meantime? It was already quite clear that she was a single mother without access to the children's fathers. And I don't like Jeffrey making this all about black men doing this every day. All of them are abandoning their kids. All men are capable of abandoning their kids. Jeffrey, you need to be responsible for your decisions before condemning all the men that you've ever laid down with. You know what I mean? But when she was saying all this, we heard a little less squeaky in her voice for a change. Within 5 minutes of the episode, we already know at least two of the couples who chose each other in the end didn't make it. And there was only two couples in the end that made it. I'm also here for Jeffrey not playing at the reunion because we do need the entertainment. But Jeffrey, if you are wrong, I'm reading you. Jeffrey says Andre was looking for an issue, essentially, and he chose the kids' fathers as an issue. And I don't think that's fair. It's a valid concern for anyone to take into account. However, as I already said, why didn't Andre find this out? So that does make it seem like he's tried to pull anything out of his back pocket to exit the relationship. And that's not cool. Everyone and their mother knew Jeffrey's children's fathers weren't in their lives. Andre says he asked Jeffrey why the children's fathers weren't in their lives, and the excuse Jeffrey gave him he wasn't buying. He claims Jeffrey is keeping the kids away from their fathers. And I think that is super judgmental and a very unfair statement to make, simply because he doesn't believe what Jeffrey's saying. Like, you don't believe her, fine. But unless you have evidence that she's being untruthful, it's just unfair to handle her this way. You knew this lady had 3 children, literally from the first episode. Literally. So, I think Andre was a total a-hole in this whole segment. He knew what Jeffrey had going on. He was just playing games. And this makes me, I can't stand him even more because I actually liked Andre for a greater portion of this season. Just last episode, I said he was charming. And I don't even care for Jeffrey like that. But in this segment, I didn't think Jeffrey deserved that from Andre. Andre knew exactly what it was with her. Jeffree says she regrets cutting off men that didn't care about her having 3 kids. Andre says, back while he's backstage, that Jeffree is the one who stopped reaching out to him. It's fine. They weren't compatible. They had sexual chemistry. So I'm sure once they explored that sexual chemistry, aka had sex, I'm sure there was just no thrill afterwards. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. We have a whole segment on Corvea. I liked Corvea, and I think she had a cool story, and I think she had decent expectations. Her man just wasn't there on the show. She looked really cute in her dress at the reunion. Marc Anthony, you can miss me with the misconception of spoiling your woman. Everybody in a relationship wants to be spoiled, rich or poor. You can spoil someone financially. You can spoil someone with your time. You can spoil someone with your energy. Lyndon says, points out that she doesn't want a 30, something-year-old man living with his mom. And I think the men were just being pretty defensive against Corvea. But I think Corvea was a pretty solid contender on the show. I'm not too interested in Morgan and Lyndon's segment. There was never a match, none whatsoever. Lyndon now has a girlfriend, so good for him. We're now on Blue's segment. Janique says after she left, Blue wanted to date her. Her issue was that it seemed like Blue tried to get her off the show. Or at the very least, he didn't stand up for her when she was on the chopping block in hopes of securing Janique for himself outside of the process. And Janique didn't like that. And I'm not sure how it happened, but if it went that way, I understand Janique's feelings. But if it didn't go that way, I do understand Blue's position. That it is better to be able to pursue someone outside of the process. It just is. Especially like that, I've said it before. Like if you and somebody only like each other, I don't see why they actually stay to the end. When it comes down to it, like you came and got what you were looking for. Like why not exit? But I guess Janique still wanted to stay in the process and date other people. And if that's how it went down, then that's not cool for Blue to be like controlling like that. Blue has been dating Kayla from last season. I didn't like Kayla that much last season. She just wasn't my cup of tea. Her wigs are still a mess, but she did look beautiful when she came out, and they do look cute together. It gets a little messy because Z says that her and Blue have been talking rather recently, but Blue literally just stated that him and Kayla have been dating for 3 months. So I see Kayla still hasn't learned her lesson about being the main chick. Like she just keeps sharing these men. Because I believe Z. Blue is a silent assassin. He is not fooling me with got the blue eye, the calm nature, the blue eyes, the lounge owner. He ain't confusing me. Backstage, Z actually confronts Blue, but Blue is acting oblivious. And I wish Z had a little more turn up just for our entertainment, but she doesn't actually need to waste her time with Blue. Blue is not looking for a serious relationship. You know what I mean? He's looking for a young trophy to make him feel good about himself. He's in the nightlife industry. So image, when they're out and about, is everything. Mercedes and Marc Anthony were really close backstage. So I assume they're still dating. We'll find out. The older dude, Fabrice, didn't show up to the reunion, but they gave him a montage. I wonder why he couldn't make it. He's interested to know, though, who's hooked up with who. I believe Fabrice when he said, people are more interested in having sex on the show than they portray on camera. But everyone doesn't have to show that on camera, though. I could see them having the desire to have more sex and what they're laying off. I just think they have class. That's just not for TV. Fabrice says he's found someone 2 weeks after filming, and he's still been with that person. The women didn't like, an older guy like himself speaking like that, and I can totally understand. It's super creepy. They gave Advocate Sue a segment, and Sue-Ann gets extra cool points for doing wonderful work on the Shanquella case. So I'm standing 10 toes down with Sue-Ann if Jeffree tries it. Sue-Ann is in a relationship with Blake, and I am pleasantly surprised. I didn't think Blake really liked her like that, but I guess he does. So I was reading them all wrong. So I can take that. They do look really good together, so I'm happy for them. We addressed the Morgan, Lyndon, and Tony love triangle. That wasn't a real love triangle. But Tony and Lyndon, their table argument was one of the highlights of the boring season. So we do thank them for that. Morgan and Tony kept dating after the show ended. But Morgan complained that Tony hadn't taken her out on dates. Tony says he got caught up with the day-to-day of work, his 2 kids, and blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm with Morgan. You had all this going on before you came on a show for love. So you're just full of it. You definitely told Morgan you wanted marriage and kids. You wasted that lady's time. But Morgan should have caught on to the red flags ahead of time if she was as serious about a committed relationship as she says she was. You know what I mean? Since according to her, she came whole to the show. You literally begged Tony for his attention the entire season, only to find out you were his second choice when it was all said and done. He had sex with Natasha, wanted to be with Marcia, and there you stood as his last resort. And Tony was trying to keep his cool and, keep his suave demeanor intact and all of that. Tony's correct. They have a toxic attraction. I called that in the beginning of the season. And Morgan just has no accountability, none whatsoever. Now, I'm not saying Tony does too. But no matter how hard Morgan tries, she cannot make Tony look like some huge villain in comparison to her. If Tony's the Joker, Morgan was Harley Quinn. Morgan was no victim. Then she calls Tony a monster. And there's more of this dramatic verbal expression. She says her love isn't toxic, but she shows no issue screaming, berating, and speaking to men aggressively in manners that would be unacceptable if returned. Let alone let Tony have told multiple women on the stage to shut up. Tony didn't call Morgan out of her name, not once. But Morgan gets to behave this way? She thinks someone is going to want to take her seriously? Natasha and Marcia, Tony's other connections, don't behave this way. So maybe that's why he was feeling them. And that's why you were the last resort, if all else fails, because y'all at least have a physical attraction. Morgan showed her slip, bringing Marcia into the little tiff, the back and forth. Marcia had nothing to do with that. You called Tony a monster, and you got laughed at because it was ridiculous. Morgan threw out Tony needing to talk to someone. I'm assuming therapy. The same way she did with Blake. She's so immature. She's so delusional. She's such a victim. And she gets to commit all the physical abuse, like tearing someone's head off of their hair, all she wants, or physical assault. But let Tony exercise his right to have sex with another castmate on a dating show. He's a monster. Morgan is the eldest female cast member on this season. She is drop dead gorgeous. And I was expecting her to be much more classy, gracious, and elegant, much more than what she's shown. She's actually pretty dangerous for men, in my opinion. She's definitely one who certainly needs to go talk to somebody. I'm glad Marcia didn't even entertain her mess. Like, let Morgan look bad on her own. Morgan's tears were so manipulative. I think Morgan expected to have this huge moment going on, with Tony. But when she was met with disagreement and people were kind of sticking up for Tony or, not agreeing with her, she couldn't keep it together. And I didn't even want to go in on Morgan because I went in on her enough during the season, but she just still sees nothing wrong with her behavior. It's everyone else all the time who's doing something to make her, behave so childishly. So we'll see what part 2 gives. I hope it's like the last part, but thank you for tuning in. The reunion was pretty good. It was okay. I like that it did move along though. Like we covered a lot in a amount of time. Like we already covered Jeffree and Andre. Like boom. So I'm glad that we're moving along. Glad about that. Thank you for tuning in. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you at the next video. Bye.